Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Obsidian Extra Lives. I'm player support specialist Chris Stanick. I'm joined today by our special guest, Kieran Ahern, producer here at Obsidian.
Hello, good to be here.
How are you today?
Doing pretty well. Yeah, really excited to play Mass Effect 3.
You're gonna play some Mass Effect 3, some
Yeah.
DLC, I hear?
DLC, yep, best DLC, the
Awesome.
Citadel.
We're gonna ask you some tough questions about your job, what you do here, how you got here, take some questions from chat, all while raising money to help raise, all while raising money to help raise money. Words are tricky.
Words are hard.
All while helping to raise money to support children and family displaced during the Ukraine crisis. You're a producer here. What were what are the jobs that you kind of did before you got into gaming? As far as you can remember.
Yeah, so I essentially went from UC Davis straight to Obsidian Entertainment internships.
So was Obsidian like your first job though?
No, I did work at Starbucks for a little bit.
Okay.
Being a barista, that was fun. I was a tutor for astronomy and economics for a bit in community college at Santa Rosa Junior College. And then I was an orientation leader at UC Davis, and I helped some of the new students kind of get acclimated, help set up their schedules, help make sure that they can get their stuff on time. Sounds very producer.
Are you going to be, since you did that, are you going to be on the
You're on shore leave.
the culture committee for the company here now?
I'm more than happy to join it. Yeah.
Sound like that'd be kind of a good thing for you to do,
Yeah.
introducing and bringing people on. But I mean, you're very busy too.
I've already been a culture buddy to a few folks who've joined my team.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I'm already getting folks
nice.
acclimated.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, we have culture buddies. When you join the studio, somebody kind of shows you around, introduces you to different people, and kind of like the things they're into, and just kind of like your go-to, like, hey, I've got some questions, or are people doing this? And we're always playing games or doing stuff. Now that we're back in the office. Behind us, as everybody knows, is like,
The board games.
I'm jealous of this collection of board games.
Yeah. I think one that I've played, I think is the Rain. There's like Blood Rage.
Okay.
It's a Viking game, and I played it with a few other folks at the studio, and it's fun. You can just go in, grab a board game,
Nice.
play it,
Yeah,
turn
it is
it,
really cool. I'm
give
a
it
big
back.
fan of the board game library. So you were at Starbucks, UC Davis, helping out, and then you went to school not for game design or anything like that, right?
Yep.
For economics, I
I
believe?
went to school for economics. Yep.
Okay.
So at UC Davis, they have a few video game classes, and I'm like, well, the economics major, I didn't have many units to take, so I'm like, I'll just take some video game classes. It sounds like a lot of fun, and that's where I learned that a producer exists. And I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, somebody who doesn't have to know coding or art can just go and help out?
Yeah.
That sounds perfect.
It's kind of like how I was like, what I do, like I don't know those things too, but it's still integral to helping. So you were there and there was an internship and you had done those classes. Or you found out about a producer?
Yeah, I found out about production, yeah.
What other things did you do to kind of familiarize yourself with there? You're like, the first video game companies that you saw were interns and you're like, I'm going for these because I want to work in games.
I actually did not apply to a specific spot. So it's a bit of a story.
Okay, we've got time.
We got time.
We're here for story time.
Excellent. I'm gonna start shooting and then start talking about my cool story.
Perfect.
So I was on the UC Davis women's rowing team. As a novice, my last year as a senior, I was as seat number 5 if anybody pays attention to rowing. So that's one of the power seats.
Okay.
That's what, I was doing so well that my coach said, hey, let's go get you down to San Diego, and all you novices can compete. So I said, that's a great idea. I actually injured my back weightlifting, so I couldn't actually go and compete, but what I did do was, since there weren't a lot of folks who could drive, is I took my car and I drove a bunch of the girls down so we could still compete. There was some alumni from UC Davis who had food and snacks and shade for us.
Can't go wrong with that.
Can't go wrong with that.
Food,
It was
snacks,
super
and
nice.
shade.
And I went to talk to, I tried to figure out who organized it because I'm like, I want to say thank you to whoever did it. And I talked to a guy named Roger, and I said, Roger, thank you so much for keeping my team like hydrated and shaded. It's super kind of you. And we just started talking like, hey, what are you doing right now? I'm like, well, economics. What do you want to do with it? I'm like, well, I want to go into video game production. Then he turns to me and says, I have a friend. His name is Chris Jones. Chris Jones is one of the founders of Obsidian. So essentially, Roger's like, yeah, give me your resume and cover letter, and I'll pass it along. So it got passed along. I got emailed, had a quick, informational interview. Where am I going? Downstairs. Quick informational interview. I remember talking to my now boss about Assassin's Creed. I like this guy. He's just like, hey. What's up? How you doing? And then, I started my internship the summer of 2018 on the Pillars of Eternity 2 DLCs, and I've been here ever since.
That's interesting because I feel like Roger probably, people coming and going like, I want to work in video games, but I bet they probably don't hear, I want to work in production or producer, because it's kind of like a not known quantity as far as the process goes.
Yeah, it's not super flashy. Like, I can't go in the game like, I made this building, or this is a weapon that I modeled. I help schedule things, and I, make sure my folks get what they need.
Speaking about being a producer, you're working with people, helping them stay on schedule, probably within the scope of the project. Does that also include like time for budgeting and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, I can do time budgeting. I can't do like budgeting.
Okay.
But I do help with outsourcing once in a while. This is much harder.
Oh, is it?
This is answering questions and fighting.
Yeah.
I think making sure people are unblocked, the devs are unblocked, so that if an artist needs something, they know exactly like how to move forward. Helping plan and schedule for the whole of the project. I worked on the Outer Worlds for a bit, and for that I did localization. So we translated that game into 10 other languages, so English and 10 other languages. And one of my main jobs on that game was to answer all the questions that the localization team had, so that we could correctly
get
the context. Yeah,
because there's a lot of subtleties in other languages and stuff that get lost in translation.
Yes, 100%. And there's like things that we say in English and like idioms and things that like don't always work in other languages. So when people are like, "What does this mean?" and like especially for Outer Worlds, where we made up our own words like raptidons, I had to talk to the localizers, and they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Here's a picture. Do what you want."
So in those cases, did they? Were they just like, okay, we're just gonna put it in like how you pronounce it, raptidon, or did they apply their own pronunciation to it, or did they just use like lizard or scaly monster? Or
Yeah, so we actually gave them quite a bit of a leeway to do what they wanted. So whatever makes the most sense for your language, as long as it works and people understand the context and everything is good to go for it. And we had a very good team we worked with. Delightful folks, asked a whole bunch of questions. But yeah, my days would be spending like going to level designers and narrative folks and be like, I have a question about this. Like, I know a lot, but I don't like, what does this mean? In various contexts, for quests and things.
So you were talking about blockers. What are some of the blockers that, like a developer can run into? Is it more just like, because in my head hearing it, because I didn't ask you like a bunch of things before of all these things you do. Is it equipment or communication or
all of it?
All of it? Like
yeah.
anything?
So say an artist needs to work on something, but like their technology is down. Like it's gonna be my job to go and talk to IT to say, all right, this person is physically blocked. They can't work on their work. Let me go fix that. If it's a multi-discipline pipeline, so multiple folks touching it, like an artist and narrative designer, level designer, or animation, and somebody is working on it and somebody else can't work on it because it's still at, maybe an environment artist is modeling something and VFX wants to go on it. Well, we can't put VFX on it until the model is done, so that person is currently blocked from doing that work. Yeah, so it's a little bit of everything. Sometimes it's just information gathering. Like, I don't have enough information to work on this thing quite yet. I have these questions. Can you help me track this down? And it's my job to go knock on doors and get that information for him.
They're knocking on a door
They're
right now.
knocking on a door right now.
When you were brought on as an intern, and you kind of had researched what producing and production was going to be like, was there anything that threw you off or that you learned specifically that you weren't expecting to when you did start?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like everything.
Really?
Well, because there's a difference between like researching it and then actually being in that position of like going and talking to devs. Like everybody has, one thing that I've learned is that everybody has a different way of like of that they like to communicate.
Yep.
And sometimes folks like being really direct, and sometimes you have, it's better to have to do a bit more talking beforehand. Yeah, see, I saved Caden, Mikey. He's right there.
He's right there.
He's
Hey,
right
buddy.
there.
Hey, Caden. You seen Ashley? He goes, oh.
Sorry. Yeah, so that was interesting. Because I'm like, as an intern, you're just like, all right, I need to do X thing. It seems simple, and then you go and talk to people, and it's much more complicated than you originally think. And over time, production, I feel like, at least in my experience, it really is something you need experience with. So if anybody is interested in doing production, if you're able to, find a small like indie team and learn about it and the best ways, or going in schooling, and having folks to help guide you, that was very helpful, because luckily I didn't have much direct production experience at UC Davis, but when I jumped on the Pillars 2 DLC team, I did have producers helping me a lot, and being like the first ones to, this is how we do things. Here, try this out. Always ask questions. What can we make better? And so it was.
Would you like me to call
It's definitely one of the ones that is a little bit more learning, and also every team is different.
Yeah,
So-
that's a good point too, because it's not something you can train for, or you get skills from being on the job, because maybe this studio does this differently and this is that, and and then also managing all the different personalities and being a conduit to them, right? Being like, okay, so you have this issue with this, and I can fix it working with this, and then bring everybody together to. You're kind of like a conductor, in a way. Because I know people would say the director is, but the director's making a lot of decisions and trusting their leads. But the producer seems like you're kind of the conductor of the orchestra, just keeping it going and flowing and everything.
Yeah, if everybody's the gears, we're the grease. Like, all right, this one can go, and now this one can go.
We need more oil.
All right,
Back to kind of when you were, or actually not, it doesn't have to be when you're interning. Is there one of the projects that you worked on that you were like most proud of, the work that you did on, or something you really got out of it that you always take forward with you now?
Outer Worlds.
Yeah?
No question about it. I'm very proud of the work that I did on the localization team. We actually got 2 awards. We got an award for our Brazilian Portuguese translation and Castilian Spanish.
Okay.
But it's because I spent like 6 months straight answering all the questions for localization, and it like that showed, because folks had a good time, like no matter where you were from. And just learning production there, because working on DLCs and working on a main game is very different. So I had only experience on the DLCs, which is super fast. We already have the tech. We know what we're doing. Like, we know the constraints.
All the systems are in place.
All the systems are in place, exactly. With Outer Worlds, I joined when we're still, it's not a DLC, so everything was still like being built up and moving along. But that's why there is pre-production to help set that stuff beforehand. But it was amazing watching the other producers on that team who had so much experience. And essentially what I did is I just soaked up all of that information. And I have the pleasure of working with a few of them again on the project that I'm currently on. So it's delightful. But yeah.
That's really cool. I think it's something that localization, if it's not in your language, you overlook because it's taken for granted. But when it is in your language and you do read and understand it and it feels like it's relating to you, it just hits you on that other level that you weren't just like an afterthought, like, oh, well, we're not going to do that for this group, this region or that language or whatever, So
Yeah.
I think that I think that's really cool that you take pride in that part of it because it did so well and that it helped the game reach so many other people.
Yeah, actually when I was at Santa Rosa Junior College, one of the things I studied was anthropology. So I like learning about other cultures and I want to be able to have more, folks who don't speak English, like be able to enjoy games. And like, so it was, I was really glad I was able to do that. Production.
I'd like a position in production, please.
What a good stream.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you came. So yeah, everybody, that's going to do it for us today here at Obsidian Extra Lives. Thank you again so much, Kieran. This was a lot of fun. We got to learn about production, blockers, helping people out, getting things flowing so the game can be made. The conductor, which was really interesting. And I think hopefully it shared some insight with people on some of the lesser known disciplines in game development.
Yeah, and I mean, if anybody sends you guys questions, like I'm more than happy to answer them even after the stream, if there's anything that's specifically on production.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have you back on.
Yeah.
To maybe not murder our clone and do some other things.
All right, I'll play the exact same thing, but next time I'll save her. No, I'll do something different. Thanks, everybody.
Goodbye. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Bye.